What you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. He didn't get anything. He was sleeping on the floor in the family room.
Utah parenting advice YouTuber Ruby Franke and her business partner Jody Hildebrandt were arrested on 6 felony counts, each of aggravated child abuse, on August 30th, 2023. Ruby Franke launched a parenting advice YouTube channel in 2015 called 8 Passengers. The channel garnered more than 2 million subscribers at its height and was named for Franke, her husband Kevin, and their 6 children. But the channel drew controversy for Franke's parenting decisions. In a 2020 video, one of Franke's sons said he was forced to sleep on a beanbag for months as punishment for his prank on a sibling. In another, Franke said she refused to bring food to her then 6-year-old daughter at school who had forgotten to bring it that day. The account was deleted in 2022, the same year Franke and her husband separated. But Franke then began working on a new channel with Hildebrandt. The channel hosted videos from an online self-improvement program that Franke and Hildebrandt ran together called Connie X Ions. It's unclear how the two met, but Hildebrandt has been a licensed clinical mental health counselor since 2003. She first acquired her associate clinical mental health counselor's license in May of that year and became a licensed clinical mental health counselor in July 2005. On September 19th, Hildebrandt voluntarily surrendered her counseling license in light of the felony child abuse charges filed against her. The move essentially limited her ability to practice in any way until her child abuse case was conducted. The surrender was not considered a disciplinary action, and Hildebrandt was able to consult with an attorney before doing so. In 2012, Hildebrandt was put on probation for 18 months after she allegedly discussed a patient with his leaders in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Brigham Young University without his permission. In those conversations, the patient said Hildebrandt accused him of having serious problems, but never actually diagnosed him or spent enough time with him to do so. But before she surrendered her license in September, Division of Professional Licensing Records stated that Hildebrandt had received no disciplinary actions. That's likely because, according to Utah law, states' websites with public access to professionals' disciplinary records must remove a record after 10 years have passed unless otherwise required by federal law. Professionals may also petition that a disciplinary record may be removed once 5 years have passed since a final disciplinary order was issued. Ruby Franke and her husband Kevin first moved into their Springville home in January of 2020. One of the neighbors said that initially the Franke children interacted with the local church community and befriended other kids in the area, but over the years they were eventually pulled out of school, and after Kevin Franke moved out of the home around August 2022, the neighbor observed Franke's 4 youngest children were repeatedly left home alone, she said. The Franke's eldest child, Shari, is a student at BYU. Shari said in an April podcast that she cut ties with her family in 2022 after her mother began working with Hildebrandt. Following her mother's arrest, Shari posted a picture of police officers to her Instagram story with the caption, "Finally." In a subsequent post, she posted that she was glad justice is being served. Kevin Franke's attorney, Randy Kester, told the Salt Lake Tribune that Kevin moved out when he and Ruby separated. Kevin has since moved back into the family home and is currently seeking custody of the 4 children placed in state care upon Ruby Franke's arrest. Ruby Franke remains in custody in Washington County, where she is being held without bail. Authorities responded to Franke's Springville home numerous times over the years, twice regarding the welfare of her children, according to a Springville Police Department records. Once on April 16, 2022, a caseworker from the DCFS alerted authorities that 2 unsupervised children were running in a street near Franke's home. The caseworker had an officer drive out to the area, but he did not see any children in the street when he arrived, according to police documents. The most recent response, September 18, 2022, was for a welfare check requested by Sherry Franke, who told police that her sisters and brother had been left home alone for 5 days while their mother visited a friend in St. George. She wanted officers to check on the children and make sure they had enough food for the extended period, police records state. When officers arrived, the children would not answer the front door. Neighbors told responding officers that Ruby Franke often left the children home alone. Police ultimately left the area after an hour or 2. In a report, officers wrote that Central Intake was contacted, but they did not specify whether the DCFS was involved. The report also did not state the outcome of the authorities. After that response, the Franke's home's blinds were always closed and what appeared to be paper was placed all over the windows, the neighbor said. Their neighbor had separately spoken with DCFS twice in 2022 about Franke's children because she was concerned that they were being left alone for long periods of time and she did not know if they had access to food and care. "I was looking for, what are the rules here?" the neighbor recalled. In that first call, an agency staffer she spoke with cited Utah's landmark free-range parenting law. She said, "This legislation was added to a section to state code explaining that a child whose basic needs are met and who is of sufficient age and maturity can engage in independent activities without being considered child neglect." Franke and Hildebrandt's August 30th arrest came after Franke's 12-year-old son escaped Hildebrandt's home in Ivins, which is right outside of St. George. A neighbor called police because the boy appeared malnourished and had duct tape on his ankles and wrist. Responding officers said they found Franke's 10-year-old daughter also appearing malnourished inside Hildebrandt's home. The two children were taken to a hospital for medical treatment, court documents state. That's when they and two of Franke's other children were placed into state custody. Franke and Hildebrandt are accused of causing or permitting serious injury to Franke's two children who were hospitalized in 3 different ways: through a combination of physical injuries or torture, through starvation or malnutrition that jeopardizes life, and by causing severe emotional harm. Those 3 alleged forms of abuse for each of the 2 children amounted to the 6 aggravated child abuse counts that Ruby Franke and Hildebrandt each face. Each count carries a sentence of 1 to 15 years in prison and a fine up to $10,000. These 2 women were scheduled to appear in court virtually on September 8th, but before the hearing began, more than 1,000 people had piled into a planned live stream of the proceedings, overwhelming the system. Some attendees even shouted profanities and argued or played music before they were removed. The delayed hearing eventually started 45 minutes late, during which 5th District Judge Eric Gentry announced that Franke and Hildebrandt would remain held without bail until their next scheduled court appearance. Search warrant records released weeks after their arrest revealed that Franke's 12-year-old son appeared to be emaciated when officers responded on August 30th. First responders also found open wounds under the duct tape on his wrist and ankles. The boy told authorities that they, seeming to reference his mother and Hildebrandt, had used cayenne pepper and honey to treat them. Items confiscated from Hildebrandt's home included 2 pairs of handcuffs, a bowl with red liquid and a metal spoon inside, tape, saran wrap, at least 3 ropes, absorbent dressings, and bandages, among other things. 2 days before Franke's 12-year-old son escaped, a video posted to YouTube depicted Franke in Hildebrandt's home, according to court documents. Investigators considered the footage evidence that Franke had recently been in the Ivins home and knew about the apparent abuse. Inside Hildebrandt's bathroom, investigators also found used gauze, which they considered evidence that Hildebrandt knew about the apparent abuse. On September 18th, the women were scheduled to appear in court for a status review hearing, but that hearing was postponed until after October 5th. Attorneys had requested the delay, citing additional time needed to review copious amounts of discovery. Do you think Ruby Franke is guilty? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button below to receive all future notifications on the latest.